I think probably the biggest thing in my career I ever did was covering all the alpine skiing, downhill slaloms and everything at the '88 Olympics in Calgary. Being for your home newspaper, covering the games was a lot of work, but it was a really big thrill to see all these people from other countries and right in your hometown. I mean, it couldn't be better than that. Well, I've always loved the history of sport, in particular football, and he had quite a massive amount of newspaper clippings from back in his career, back to the 1940s, and it was fascinating looking back on all those, all the players that he played with and against and everything. It was, I really enjoyed it, and he was quite a knowledgeable guy about his career. And but he was 92 years old when I started interviewing him, so he'd forgotten a bit, but he still had a really good anecdotal stuff, and then had all the newspaper clippings to back it up. We had a really good relationship and became good friends, and it was really enjoyable to deal with. It was fascinating. The history that he went through, going from Arkansas to California and to Calgary, was very interesting. Well, I did compete in a lot of sports. I mean, that was the basis for it. And I always thought that it would be neat to write about it. And I was always reading newspapers and sports magazines, and I was always into it and following it very closely. And so it was just natural. My older brother was a really good hockey player and in other sports, and so I kind of learned it from him, and my younger brother learned it from me. So we've all were reasonably successful in certain sports. So it's always been a big thing in my life to take part, and even not winning, but participating was more important. I mean, you did your best, but you accepted whatever the result was as long as you'd done your best. Yeah, and I took to writing because I mean, right from when I was a kid, I used to have little dice games, and then I'd finish the little game with the dice, and then I'd write up what happened. You know, and so I right from very young, I loved writing, and I did it all, well, for 40 years. I was a professional writer, so for newspapers. Well, I've written 4 books on the Stampeders now, and I'm thinking about writing another one. And it's mainly all to do with historical aspects of their franchise, and I find it fascinating because you have to dig a lot of research. I love research and going through old magazines, newspapers, interviewing people. It's probably the fun part of the job. I mean, writing is the easier part. It's the research is a lot of work, but it's very rewarding because you find a lot of stuff you never knew. Some of the athletes that come to mind, like I covered skiing for a long time, and people like Karen Lee Gartner. I had a really good relationship with her. We used to get along. I used to interview her a lot. She was great to deal with. Ken Reed was another one that was fabulous to deal with. And there's a lot of others. I covered baseball for years. I started watching baseball on TV back about 1960. So when I was covering the Cannons, AAA baseball team in Calgary, a lot of guys came through as managers and coaches and so on. And I knew all about their history from back in the early 60s because I'd covered watched it on TV and read about it and everything. So I found it fascinating to meet these people in person, and you're not really a hero worshiper, but you love their history, what they've done, and the time they were in sports and everything. It's fascinating to me. It's fantastic. I can't say enough about this place, and I would love to see a lot more funding come this way. I mean, it's to me, this is a fantastic facility. You've got 50-some sports at least. I don't know how many the total is, but I mean, they're and great athletes from each sport. And every time there's an induction thing now, I look at who the people are going in, and I don't know a lot about them. And then I read about it and learn about them, read their bio, and man, they're fantastic people. And I was involved covering sports for a long time with the Herald in Calgary, and a lot of these people I didn't know about because some of them were even long before I was involved. So I find it interesting to find out who these people are, meet them. I've been to the last couple of inductions. I've met a lot of people that I didn't even know who they were, and I find them very fascinating people, and what they've done is amazing. And I'm glad that there's a place like this that can honor them. Well, whatever you want to do, whether you want to be an athlete or whether you want to be a writer or broadcaster or whatever, I think the best thing you do is you learn everything about that sport you can, or whatever sport you're going to be involved in, and just do your best. And if you love it, you'll get good at it.